All right, listen up everyone. You're in this room because you've either got level 4 clearance or you're operating directly under O5 command. Our objective today is absolutely critical. We're running through a zero-tolerance threat assessment of SCP-016. Now, I shouldn't have to say this, but this is not a drill. The stakes here, they literally could not be higher, so let's get right into it. Just so we're all on exactly the same page, here's what we're covering in this dossier. First, a Keter-class threat overview. Then, we'll hit the mandatory containment protocols, followed by the pathogen's origin and baseline symptoms. After that, we're looking at stress-induced anomalous mutations. And finally, we'll review the transformative experimentation logs. Right, moving straight into Section 1, Keter-class threat overview. Look, I need to make one thing perfectly clear right out of the gate. SCP-016 is wildly aggressive and it is highly adaptable. If this thing breaches containment, the consequences are absolute. It's a nightmare scenario. I want you to look at that number, 48. Keep it in your head. We have absolutely zero margin for error here, folks. If an outbreak happens, site security has exactly 48 hours to lock it down. If this infection isn't 100% neutralized within that incredibly tight window, the on-site nuclear device gets detonated, period. There are no extensions, there are no exceptions. You get 48 hours to fix it, or we wipe the site off the map. Which brings us to Section 2, mandatory containment protocols. Because of those extreme stakes I just mentioned, our physical and operational procedures here are completely uncompromising. These specs right here, this is our baseline defense. SCP-016 has to be kept in a room no larger than 5 by 5 by 5 meters. The temperature inside has to be sustained at or below 0 degrees Celsius at all times. The pathogen itself stays in a petri dish, locked inside a containment cube under rigid biocontainment level 5 or BCL5 conditions. You do not even look at this thing without direct sign-off from level 4 or O5. You know, if it gets on a surface, it can survive for up to 6 hours. In the air, you've got several minutes of active threat. Because of that, high-intensity UV light and orthofaldehyde are strictly mandated for disinfection. Listen to me very carefully. You fail to follow a single protocol on this list, you're looking at immediate termination, or best case, a one-way ticket to Class D. Now, if all that physical containment somehow fails, we instantly execute the outbreak response sequence. Step 1, Code Sigma Lockdown. The containment plan goes into effect immediately. Step 2, On-site security. Suited up in full MOP gear, that's mission-oriented protective posture for anti-bio and anti-chem, they sweep the facility and terminate all infected personnel on site. And step 3, like we just talked about, if you hit hour 48 and it's still uncontained, we detonate the on-site nuke. Let me be unequivocally clear on this point. Nobody gets evacuated. Nobody. All right, Section 3, Pathogen Origin and Baseline Symptoms. Before we dig into its anomalous, Keter-class traits, we really need to understand how this thing acts biologically on a normal day. So SCP-016 is a blood-borne pathogen. We actually first recovered it from a mine worker down in a deep coal seam. What happened was, patient 0 took an injury. It got contaminated with coal dust, and that inadvertently exposed his bloodstream to dormant spores. SCP-016 tore through the rest of the mining camp employees in no time, and well, it didn't stop there. It ended up infecting the CDC crisis team that was sent in to handle the epidemic. The Foundation had to step in, terminate everyone affected, bag patient 0, and permanently collapse the mine shaft with explosives. Just completely seal it off. Now look at the timeline here. This pathogen is incredibly deceptive. The incubation period can be anywhere from a mere 24 hours to 2 full years. It just depends on how many other potential human hosts are hanging around. Phase 1 is frankly insidious. It perfectly mimics the common cold. We're talking itchy eyes, runny nose, a bit of a cough, maybe some body aches. It lulls the host into this false sense of security. But then, exactly 48 hours later, Phase 2 kicks in. It triggers a controlled hemorrhagic fever. The organism actually forces blood to aspirate in the lungs. Why? Because it creates this deadly aerosol effect when the host coughs, maximizing its airborne transmission. And then we hit Phase 3. Phase 3 is total, absolute systemic collapse. The host just crashes, bleeding profusely from literally every orifice in their body. Eyes, pores, mouth, everywhere. Their blood pressure skyrockets to levels we didn't even think were biologically possible. Seriously, hosts in this final stage have been documented projectile vomiting blood over distances exceeding 5 meters, all just to spread the contagion further. It leads to near-total exsanguination. And the real kicker, if by some absolute miracle the host actually survives that catastrophic blood loss, the pathogen just goes back to sleep. It returns to dormancy, and the whole incubation phase starts over. Moving on to Section 4, Stress-Induced Anomalous Mutations. Everything we just covered is bad enough, but SCP-016's Keter classification actually comes from how it responds to extreme high-level stress. That is where the real nightmare begins. We call this response the teratomorphic state. If the host is shoved into a high-stress, genuinely life-threatening crisis, the virus makes a calculated, anomalous decision. It completely stops its standard routine of rapid reproduction. Instead, it starts rapidly rewriting the host's very DNA, heavily overstimulating cellular division. You start seeing major physiological shifts within the first 24 hours, and within 2 weeks, complete bodily reconstruction. The pathogen forcefully mutates the host's physical form for one single reason: to survive whatever immediate environmental threat is trying to kill it. Of course, most hosts don't actually survive the mutation process, simply because the biological toll on the body is just way too extreme. It's a terrifying showcase of how adaptable SCP-016 really is. But this kind of extreme survival mechanism comes with a nasty side effect. Hosts that actually survive the transformation develop extreme aggressive urges. We're talking rabid animal levels of violence. We believe the virus essentially hardwires this rage into the host to ensure maximum physical contact, spreading the infection as far as possible. And don't forget, even though these mutated subjects aren't bleeding out from the hemorrhagic fever anymore, they are still highly infectious. Anyone they touch, anyone they bite, will go right into the standard, bloody, non-mutated infection process. Okay, Section 5. Transformative experimentation logs. We aren't just guessing about these mutations. Let's look at some of the empirical testing logs we pulled from Class D personnel. I want you to pay close attention to the divergent responses here. We took 2 different infected D-class personnel and put them through the exact same stress test. We locked them in their quarters and slowly flooded the rooms with water over a 24-hour period. Look at subject D0161. To survive drowning, the virus literally mutated the guy's lungs into functioning gills. It turned his limbs into fins, his eyes atrophied, and he even developed cetacean-style echolocation, a total aquatic adaptation. Now compare that to D0162. Faced with the exact same rising water, the virus in this guy opted for pure brute force. It triggered rapid bone and muscle growth, specifically isolating his knuckles, so he could try to physically smash his way through a reinforced steel containment door. It's the same crisis, but the virus came up with 2 completely different, extreme physiological countermeasures. Let's take a look at the wider experiment matrix. Subject D0163 was also flooded, but instead of gills or brute strength, this one grew an entirely new chest organ with separate tubes and sacs containing acetylene gas and oxygen. The virus literally evolved a biological cutting torch inside him. Then you have D0164, our control. We didn't apply any stress, just told the guy to really concentrate on trying to form wings, and nothing happened. The virus didn't feel physically threatened, so it didn't react. The guy just bled out and died normally during Phase 3. But then there's D0165. We put him in an acrylic box, suspended him 1,000 feet above a mine shaft, and attached a ticking bomb timer to the outside. The virus panicked and rapidly grew a tentacle-like spinneret out of his wrist. He extruded this incredibly strong, silk-like substance to physically secure his box to the suspension cable. Basically, this organism will invent whatever bizarre anatomy it needs to survive its environment. It's wild. As you can imagine, this sheer, terrifying mastery over biological manipulation has raised a lot of eyebrows in our research divisions. Right now, there's actually an official addendum on file, noting an active investigation into a potential link between this anomaly and SCP-1801. Both of them are highly fatal Keter contagions that somehow stimulate the body into producing excessive, completely aberrant organs. If we can uncover the foundation of that link, it might just give us the broader context we need to figure out how to combat and neutralize Keter-class biology in the future. But look, until some genius in a lab coat finds that neutralization method, uncompromising containment is the only option we have. Which brings us full circle, right back to the ultimate operational directive I need you to internalize before you walk out of this room. Remaining personnel are not to be evacuated under any circumstances. If SCP-016 breaches, your life is forfeit. That's the deal. You die so the rest of the world gets to live. Do you grasp the terrifying lengths this pathogen will go to just to survive? And more importantly, do you have the unwavering resolve to ensure it never, ever gets the chance? That concludes today's threat assessment on SCP-016. You're dismissed. This concludes today's briefing. If you wish to maintain your current clearance level and ensure continued access to the Versarian database, a subscription to this channel is mandatory. Secure your connection by leaving a like on this file, and log your requests in the comments section below to dictate which anomaly we unseal next. Stay vigilant and expect your next set of logs every day. Secure, contain, protect.